Cicero. Cicero was a Roman consul, actually, and rose to that position and tried to get Rome from falling from a republic to an emperorship. He lived from 106 to 34 BC. And as we said, rose to the office of Roman consul. He was murdered a year after Caesar was murdered in 43 BC. And in his life, he wrote some of the things that the founders loved to read. Two of his famous books are entitled The Republic and the Laws. So if you'll turn with me on page 39, some of the fundamental principles that Cicero taught in trying to get the people to resist this tremendous effort that was being made by some to destroy the Republic of Rome and to turn it into an emperorship or a dictatorship. Some of his fundamental principles are listed on page 39. First of all, he says, you have to conduct yourselves right. If you want to conduct yourself according to the laws of nature, it will always be right. What are the laws of nature? The laws of nature and of nature's God, as John Locke said, and as Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, are the laws in which everything is made to work properly. And if you conform your conduct according to those laws, then it will work. If you don't, it won't work. What will work? Government, human relationships, everything. Cicero also said and really recognized that there was an intelligent design of the universe. This creator, as Cicero talked about, as Blackstone talked about, who formulated laws to make everything work properly. And these weren't just random laws. These were laws that were laid down by the Creator, which formed an intelligent design of the universe. And he called the Creator's order of things natural law. He said that these things are common sense and they're reasonable. They make sense. And people who are reasonable and who are right thinking will come to those conclusions. They're common sense. They're not extraordinary, out of the ordinary kind of things. Hence the phrase, the laws of nature and of nature's God. It's the way things are. Well, let's get to a quote here, which is on the top of page 40. This is Cicero. I want you to turn to that page and follow through now as I read this quote. He says, true law, real law, the way things really are, is right reason in agreement with nature. What does that mean? A true law is right reason in agreement with nature. In other words, law that is really good and really is effective and really works for a happy people and for a good society will agree with each other all the time because they agree with nature. He says it is of universal application, unchanging and everlasting. Now, see if you can understand and get the meaning out of this next phrase. It summons to duty by its commands. What in the world does that mean? Natural law summons to duty by its commands. Are you hungry? Is nature telling you that you're hungry? What do you need? You need food. How are you going to get food? You work for it. You have to do something. You see where natural law summons to duty by its commands? It makes you do things you should do, really, and averts from wrongdoing by its prohibitions. Natural law will tell you there are certain things you should not do, because if you do them, you know you're going to get hurt. You shouldn't walk out into the street with cars coming both directions. You shouldn't put your hand on the hot stove. It averts from wrongdoing by its prohibitions. Do you see that? This is all natural law. It is a sin to try to alter this law, nor is it allowable to repeal any part of it, and it is impossible to abolish it entirely. Can you imagine a legislature who would pass a law saying there's no more gravity in our state? Would gravity cease to be? No. This is all natural law. It's the way things are. It doesn't matter what a legislature says, whether it tries to repeal it. He says you can. And we cannot be freed from its obligations by Senate or people. And we need not look outside ourselves for an expounder or interpreter of it. What does that mean? That means natural law is so understandable, so common sense, so reasonable, that you don't need a bank of skilled attorneys to interpret it. And there will not be different laws at Rome and at Athens, or different laws now and in the future, but one eternal and unchangeable law will be valid for all nations and all times. And there will be one master and ruler, that is God, over us all. For He is the author of this law, its promulgator and its enforcing judge. And then he says this: whoever is disobedient, in other words, who tries to go around, try to violate natural law, is fleeing from himself, his very person. He's fleeing from and denying his human nature. How do you like that? And by reason of this very fact will suffer the worst punishment. Well, powerful paragraph by Cicero. You can see why the founders loved this. First of all, he says true law is in agreement, or true law is right reason in agreement with nature. It all conforms. I want you to think of the phrase, true law or natural law is the Creator's way of organizing things to make them work properly. Whether it's scientific law, whether it's laws of human relationships. For example, if you discover scientific laws, what can you have? You can have nice television sets, computers, air conditioning, lights, transport, all these nice things, if you find out the law in nature and apply it. But Blackstone says there's another part to natural law. It's the natural law for human happiness. And he says the Creator doesn't let us fumble around and just discover those. He gives us those things right from the beginning. Have you noticed that? He says, in order to be happy, don't what? Don't kill. Don't steal something that belongs to somebody else. Don't lie. Don't covet your neighbor's property. Go out and earn your own. Don't commit adultery. See all those things right from the beginning. And the founders said all of these things are a part of natural law. It's the way things are. And if you comply with them, if you organize your government, if you organize your life, your family according to these laws, you will have happiness. If you don't, what does he say? You will suffer the worst punishment. Things won't work for you. So let me ask you a question. If you create a government, say, that does not allow people to enjoy the benefits of their own labors, in other words, nobody owns private property, what can you say from the very beginning about that government? What will happen? Right, it will fail, guaranteed. Has it always failed? Yes. See that? That's natural law. Okay? He says natural law is eternal, universal, reasonable, cannot be altered or repealed, it's comprehensible, and it's totally correct. It's truth. It's the way things are. Okay? Now I want you to turn to page 41, which is the next page, and And let's see what Cicero said, why man can think this way, why it's easy for man to think this way. Look what he says. He says, the animal which we call man, endowed with foresight and quick intelligence, complex, keen, possessing memory, full of reason and prudence, has been given a certain distinguished status by the supreme God who created him. For he is the only one among so many different kinds and varieties of living beings who has a share in reason and thought, while all the rest are deprived of it. Does a rock have reason and thought? No. Does a tree? No. Do animals? No. Only man. Isn't that what he's saying here? And reason, the ability to think things through, reason, which he says is the divine gift to man from the Creator, when it is full grown and perfected, is rightly called wisdom. Isn't that great? Only man shares this great gift of reason with the Creator. And once reason is perfected, it's called wisdom. Do you ever wish for wisdom? I do. In making decisions, in trying to see through things that happen in life and situations. Wisdom. That's a great blessing. And Cicero said what that is developed reason. Developed, perfected reason is wisdom. Okay? Let's go on with this quote. He says, therefore, since there is nothing better than reason, and since it exists both in man and God, the first common possession of man and God is reason. But those who have reason in common must also have right reason in common, and since right reason is law, true law, we must believe that men have law also in common with the gods. Do you see his thinking there? This is marvelous logic. This is all Cicero. And so he would say, and the founders believed, reason and law are common to God and man. John Locke said it another way a little bit later. He said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Creator to have placed man here to live in society without the ability to reason and think through the things that are necessary for a good society, to be able to live in happiness. See that thinking? Okay. Now, as you think about natural law, as you think about the ability to reason, and you think about man's comprehension of this wonderful order that the Creator set forth to make everything work properly, what then would you think should be man's number one goal, number one objective of his life, number one place to put his energy if supreme happiness comes by conforming with natural law? That's a good question. What would you say to that? Cicero would say, and did say, if you conform your life to the will of the Creator, which is expressed in everything around you, that's really the most important thing. And that develops in you then a love, a respect, a sort of humble, a sort of humility for all of this natural law, all of this order that the Creator has given. In other words, your first yearning, your first desire would be to what? Would be to search after this order. Does that sound a little familiar?